When you first start out learning a language, usually you think something like this. Understanding someone speak the language will come down to how many words I know, how many rules I know, and how fast I can use them. You treat listening to the language like a real-time decoding puzzle. You're bracing yourself every sentence, you're hanging on each word, and you're trying to solve for meaning piece by piece. Eventually, if you continue your journey to fluency, you'll realize that this simply isn't how comprehension works. This kind of piece-by-piece listening will never get you to the fluidity you experience when you listen to your own native language. What is going on, guys? My name is Nick. I'm the creator of Lengualytics and a fluent speaker of the Spanish language. When we start out learning a language, we tend to focus on what's most visible to us. We assume the key to understanding lives in the words, the grammar, and the structures. These things feel like the building blocks of comprehension. Words carry meaning, grammar tells us how we order words, and structures help us understand common phrases in the language. And of course, these things matter. You can't understand the language without understanding the words and the grammar, obviously. The question isn't, do they matter? The question is, are they really the full story? When a native speaker says something to you, what's doing the heaviest lifting? What's really allowing you to have fluid comprehension? Imagine I say this sentence. I've been walking outside in the heat for 3 hours. My mouth is dry. I feel like I'm gonna pass out. Can I please have a glass of... Do I even need to finish the sentence? You know what I'm going to say. You know I'm going to ask for water. But notice what happened there. I never said the word water, yet you understood what I was trying to say perfectly. Why? Because you understood the narrative. You knew who was speaking, you knew what was happening, you knew the situation I was in, and you knew what I needed. And because you knew all that, the missing word was inevitable. What I'm gonna say now might shock you. Narrative is more important than words and grammar for real-time comprehension. The narrative in that sentence did so much work that it created a small space where only a handful of words could fit. And one word fits so well that your brain required nothing to get the meaning. Let me repeat that. The narrative did so much work that the silence at the end of the sentence gave you more information than all the grammar around it. Let me strip away the grammar if you don't believe me. Walking outside, heat for 3 hours, mouth dry, going to pass out, please glass of... You can remove 50% of that sentence and still understand exactly what I'm trying to say. Now, I gave an obvious example of where narrative fully predicts the last word. But narrative is actually at work in every single moment of that sentence. When you hear, I've been walking outside in the heat for 3 hours, your brain starts constructing an image. And every word that comes after doesn't come in a vacuum. Every time your brain sees another word, it asks itself, how does this word fit into the existing image? How does this next piece fit with what I already know? When you're fluent in a language, this kind of thing is happening constantly under the surface. You're never building meaning from scratch using words like building blocks. You're following the situation, the intention, the direction of the conversation. Words are always landing inside a narrative that your brain is constantly sharpening. The best possible example I can give of this is modern dictation technology. If you've used voice to text recently, you've noticed that it's gotten really, really good. You can mumble, you can slur over a word, you can miss a word, and somehow the machine still types it out correctly. Sometimes you'll watch it type out a word and then come back a half second later and fix it. It isn't matching sounds to a dictionary of words one at a time. Modern dictation listens to the shape of the whole sentence, predicts what's coming, and corrects itself based on context. The audio is just one ingredient. The narrative, what it thinks you're probably saying, is doing most of the work. And this is exactly what your brain does in your native language. When you're listening to a sentence, each word your brain gets is carving out the meaning of the sentence by pattern matching based on all the similar experiences you've had. In normal everyday language, we call this anticipation. We don't parse meaning individually sound by sound. Instead, we anticipate and self-correct using narrative. Who's speaking? What are they trying to do? Where are they? What just happened earlier? Why are they saying this? And where is this thought probably going? To get that fluidity of understanding that we experience in our native language, we cannot think of words and grammar as the building blocks for comprehension. We have to instead treat them like a medium through which meaning flows. When you're listening to a language, the goal is not to have a perfect semantic understanding of every single word. The goal is to have a functional understanding of what's being expressed. Those are very different things. Semantic understanding means you can pause the sentence, tell us the function of each word, explain the tense, etc. Functional understanding means you know what's happening. You know what the person wants. You know where the conversation is going. You understand the role the sentence is playing in the larger narrative. And if we're actually trying to understand somebody, then functional understanding matters way, way, way more than semantic understanding. Semantic understanding is semantic. And this completely changes how you should look at understanding your target language, because this applies to you no matter how advanced you are. I noticed that most learners listen to their target language as if they're going to be tested. They hear a sentence, and if they miss a single word, they want to pause, rewind, go back, translate, and make sure they have every single piece. I did this. I think it's completely natural and completely normal for someone just getting into language learning to feel that way. But it's not how you build comprehension in the long term. As long as you understand the narrative, you didn't fail. If you know what's happening, then you understood the thing that you were actually trying to understand. It's important to remember that this is the ultimate goal of language learning. When you're talking to a native speaker in real life, you're not going to get a quiz at the end that says, did you recognize all the words? Did you understand all the grammar? All that matters is that you understood the message the person was trying to convey. We come to language with these preconceived notions about what words are most important and what grammar rules you need to learn first. We end up focusing on what we've decided is important. And I'm not saying that all words and all grammar rules are equally helpful in comprehension, but in the context of a story or a conversation or somebody speaking to you, the words that are important are a function of the narrative. One word in one context might be completely irrelevant. You might not need it at all, but that same word in a different context might be super important for understanding the message. If we go into the language trying to focus on what we consider important instead of letting the narrative guide us, then we essentially abandon our strongest tool for understanding the language. And this is why authentic experience with the language matters so much. Because when you study a language from isolated fragments, there is no narrative. And if that's what our brains are primarily using, we're neglecting to train what matters most. How can we expect our brain to have the prediction power that allows us to anticipate if we don't actually have authentic experiences to draw those predictions from? Following narrative in another language is a skill on its own. It's a complex skill, it's hard to test for, but it's the skill that enables real-time comprehension. You should not expect to understand fast Spanish, fast Russian, fast Italian just because you can understand words, rules, and structures in isolation. And this is where comprehensible input becomes so powerful. Comprehensible input is the solution to real-time comprehension because it's the most accessible way to get experience following narrative in a language. You get the language at a speed and difficulty that allows you to understand it in a similar way to how you'd understand your native language. It trains you implicitly to care about what people are saying. It trains you to be able to follow a message. And it gives you that database of authentic experiences that your brain can pull from to predict what comes next in a given situation. As I've said before, the best that words and grammar can do is give you the answer to the question, what theoretically could come next? But comprehensible input, through showing you authentic expressions of the language, can give you the answer to the more important question, what usually does come next? That's a way more important question when it comes to real-time comprehension. It's the secret sauce. It's that invisible piece that grants you the power of anticipation, so you don't have to try to hang on to a sentence word by word. It's the key to getting that feeling that the language is washing over you, that same feeling you get when you're listening to your native language and you don't even have to think, you just feel the meaning. A lot of language learning apps either want you to isolate the language and treat language learning like a word and grammar collectathon, or they want you to just throw on native TV shows and native movies that you can't understand, so you have to directly translate every single sentence. In neither case are you effectively building your ability to follow a narrative. And that's why so many traditional language learners think they're at an intermediate plateau. They say to themselves, well, I have all the words, I have all the grammar, I have all the structures, but anytime I throw on the language, I just freeze, I can't figure it out. It's because they're missing narrative. They completely discounted the glue that holds all the words and grammar and structures together. I don't want to make it seem like once you understand narrative, all your problems are going to be solved. Now you can go watch the language and totally get it, because that's not what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is understanding narrative is a legitimate skill you have to build. And it's kind of hard to build. I have a video about why that is right here. I think the insight in that video is one of the most important insights I've touched on. So if you're interested, I will see you there, or I'll see you again in some other video. Thank you for watching.